Are you sexually compatible with your partner? One would think that human beings just connect. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. Hi, I'm Rick Higgins, and there is no official definition of sexual compatibility, but I will offer you a quote from Psychology Today that might help along. It is the extent to which a couple perceives they share sexual beliefs, preferences, desires, and needs with their partner. Now, it may not seem like something so important at first, especially when you're in a brand new relationship, because you've got love and chemicals and hormones and everything just flowing through your partnership. And how in the world could you not be compatible? Oh my God, no one has ever experienced anything as wondrous and great as what you have. And then time comes along. And that's when you have to start thinking about things, because sexual compatibility is a hidden time bomb. You have to be able to talk with your partner. You have to be able to express yourself. You have to have a firm understanding of whether you're sexually compatible or not, of whether your relationship is actually going to go places or whether it's going to explode one day. Now, this is a difficult subject. Americans, and perhaps many other places in the world, we have a poor relationship with sex. Now, I know it's the 21st century, and we all like to think that we are super progressive, we are super into it, we can talk about it. But you know, the truth is, we really can't. We really struggle with talking about it as a society, at least at a higher level than just nudity on a Hollywood movie. But in between couples, you would be surprised in this day and age just how difficult it is for two people who love each other to still talk about what they want and expect and their fantasies and everything else that they just kind of want to keep hidden. Now, one of the biggest, obviously, I suppose, problems where you can have sexual incompatibility is just simply sex drive. And that's sort of a definition. What is sex? How often do you want sex? What does it look like? It differs for everybody. And I can almost guarantee you that it's going to differ between you and your partner. And another thing we've got to worry about is what kinds of sex. Yeah, sex sounds real easy. You hop into the missionary position or some other one, and off you go. Humans have been doing this for a long, long time, right? Well, what kinds of sex do you like? There's 1,000 different styles, mentally as well as physically, as well as, every other way. You have to decide and to understand what is important, what do you like, and how often do you want it? The absolute key, and we're going to get into a lot of this, is compromise and understanding. It's figuring out what your partner wants, what you want, what can you give up, what are you willing to compromise on, what are you willing to jump into wholeheartedly. And the biggest thing is how often, how well, and how deep do you communicate, because that is the absolute key. And if you are willing to communicate, then congratulations, you are one step closer to being sexually compatible. Because without communication, you're probably not going to be. Okay, there are some things that you and your partner are going to have to define for each of you and together. For instance, the environment. Where do you like to have sex? How long do you go for? Are you into quickies, slow, lots of foreplay, not lots of foreplay? Specific sexual acts. What kind of positions and techniques do you define as sex? How often? Daily, weekly, yearly? And your libido. Who actually desires and wants this more than the other? And the bigger things to consider are, how big are those differences? How far apart did your definitions become? Where on the list, for instance, is sex? Every single one of us has a list of priorities that we have every day. Career, family, feed the dog, clip the toenails, sex. Where on your list is sex? And for some of you, maybe it's not even on that list. At that point, definitions really are important, and you really have to understand what the other person thinks, does, knows, and the importance of it all. Now, maybe you are willing to compromise once you get these definitions down. Maybe you're not. Maybe you'll stay together and work on this. Maybe you'll split up. But one of the biggest keys are No one person gets to define sex for the couple. You shouldn't be guilted into it, pressured into accepting something that you cannot. When I say compromise, I don't mean giving in so that the relationship can continue in the best possible agreement you can have. You have to give in when you can, and you have to not give in when you can't. This is something that's very intimate, it's very personal, and to be pressured into a definition of one partner's idea of sex is not going to cut it. That is the definition of incompatibility. Now, it has been said that sex does not make a marriage, but it has also been said that in-laws, cooking, and personal hygiene also do not make a marriage. But I would posit to you that all of that is very important, and no person can define. Sex might be a very defining factor in what your relationship, what your marriage may be. It may not be, but only you can decide how important it is and what levels of compromise and acceptance that you can come up with. Now, sexual compatibility is something that should grow over time. Now, I don't know if I'm speaking to you and you have been in a long-term relationship and you've never really talked about this stuff. Maybe you're in a new relationship. Maybe you're in your 50s and 60s and all of a sudden you're in the dating game again and you're not quite sure how to jump in anymore. Well, let's say you're there. Let's say that you are in a relationship and you are finding yourself, well, maybe not as compatible as you would like. You actually do have options. You actually really do. The first thing you need to do is see a counselor, a marriage counselor, a personal counselor, because a lot of things that each of you may be bringing to the table may come from your past. Your definitions of sexuality may actually not be who you want to be. Maybe there is opportunity for you to personally grow and then to grow into your sexual relationship. Then again, maybe you actually have problems with the two of you having sex. Go to a sex therapist. And I know everyone is starting to tittle and giggle and, they never heard of a sex therapist and I don't need it. But guess what? A lot of times people just struggle to communicate. They have a lot of difficulty in understanding each other. And a sex therapist can help you. And if nothing else, the homework could be a lot of fun. There are other things you can do together, and a lot of this depends on your comfort level. Watch porn together, go to a sex shop together, discuss your fantasies. What do you have in the back of your mind that you think would be really cool, even if you would never do it? Openly talk about fantasies, openly talk about the things that you think you would like. You're going to find that it's very enlightening and it's going to dive and drive and dig deeper into so many more topics, and it's going to be able to open you up. So communication is a two-way street, and the biggest part of this is to listen. A lot of us have conversations and all we do is we sit there and we wait for our turn to interject our words. So you're only sort of half paying attention to what your partner is talking about, and perhaps they you. Now, this is the most important thing. Honestly, listen. Don't come up with your next thing to say while you're waiting your turn, because what your partner is saying is important. They are opening up a very intimate and personal side of them, as are you. This is a topic that matters a lot to your relationship. Now, I will give you my personal perspective on this one. I think sex is very important in a relationship. I have some very decided views on what sex is, and they have evolved over the years. I started out in a very pure, wholesome 1950s place where sex was an intimate thing between two people who loved each other and been married for 12 years and you had to create kids. I actually find sex very intriguing, very enlightening, very difficult to talk about. I have not had this conversation in detail with my current partner. There are things, fantasies, ideas. Now, we have talked a lot, but still, I haven't taken my own advice completely. So sex is a very important thing to me. I believe it is very, very much a part of a healthy relationship. And I too need to watch this video and take some advice and learn how to communicate and share what's deep inside of me, regardless of how embarrassed I might be at some of my revelations. Because when you get right down to it, if you don't have this conversation, it means one of two things. You are perfectly fine in your less than adequate, perhaps almost celibate sexual relationship, or you're destined to have your relationship explode. Because unless you go find a way to communicate and to become more compatible, this is just the elephant in the room that's eventually going to sit on you and squash everything. So be healthy, be happy, and we will talk to you soon.